then I will allow Lindsay to introduce herself, and then we'll get started. Tarchelle?
Hey, y'all. So I am Tarchelle B. Of course, that's been my screen name online forever. I too manage bipolar disorder and was online using my platform to help women to manage. I figured out that using things like planners, journals, and so forth really helped me to manage. And about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I went online and decided to do a YouTube video and saw that I got so much feedback because people really needed to know how to manage. We get these diagnoses, or we go through something and we go to a therapist sometimes, and they don't really tell us what we can do. Practical things like keeping track of your moods and keeping track of what you're putting into your body. I'm not going to get into the wellness stuff. That session is tomorrow, but they don't really tell us everything that we should be paying attention to with our mental health. And things like journaling and using the creative outlets that we have. And again, there's a session that Mo Love is doing on Sunday, with the creativity and how much those types of things help. So I just I was already a certified life coach, and I put all of that together and started just using that to empower women and to help women to manage their own mental health challenges, because we all have them. Whether you have a diagnosis or not, we all have some mental health challenges, especially women in the Black community. And I'll turn it over to Lindsay so she can introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Lindsay Anderson. I also have 3 mental illnesses. So I have bipolar disorder type 2, post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as generalized anxiety disorder. And so I've experienced a lot of these things throughout my childhood. So I've been dealing with it for a while. And so a few years back in about 2015, I went to YouTube and I was like, somebody else has to be experiencing this. There has to be somebody else that looks like me who understands what I'm going through. And unfortunately, I could not find anyone. And so I started blogging, and I was like, I'm going to get everything out and I'm going to just let everybody know. And so I finally said, you know what? I want to create a YouTube channel. I want to be a visual, because I think sometimes people like to read, but I think visual sometimes gives people more of a connection. And so I decided to start Transparency Thursday, which was just kind of this day where I got in front of the camera and I talked, I cried, I screamed, whatever it was. And I was just really honest about what I was going through. And a lot of people started messaging me and leaving comments saying, wow, like, I understand. Like, I thought I was the only person. And so now I continue doing that work. And so now, after many name changes, I run Consciously Coping. Consciously Coping is a online, pretty much social media site where I allow African Americans to really come and leave comments and discuss and have really good conversation about mental health, what it looks like for us as far as going to get mental health services. How does it look like for us to parent and have a mental illness? We discuss different things, from our childhood and just, a few other things like that on our site and on social media. And so I think it's really important to continue these conversations and have a space that really is carved for us, especially Black women. I know the power of Black women. I have been following Laqwanda for years. I found her one day, it randomly showed up in my YouTube, like, suggestions. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not alone. So I know the importance of Black women sharing their stories of healing and, just going through different things. So I'm excited to be here. So that's it.
I found Laqwanda as well in the YouTube community, and she was the first person, and I say this all the time, if y'all have seen us do things together, Laqwanda was the first person that I ever heard say the words, I have bipolar disorder. Black, white, male, female, I had never heard anyone say those words. So just her exposing and being so vulnerable has brought even my community, the community that follows me, it has brought so much healing. It's just been a snowball effect. So yeah. Thank you, Laqwanda.
All right, ladies. So to begin tonight's discussion, we're gonna talk about trauma. One thing, an interesting thing, because I have stories for everything, as we all do. I am an emergency services clinician. So every day when I work, I deal with people who are actively suicidal, actively homicidal, actively psychotic, or their mental health has led them to a point to where they can no longer care for themselves. So we're looking at really the sickest of the sick, and that's what I do for a living. And when I interviewed for the position, my soon-to-be supervisors asked me a question that no one had ever asked me before. It was like, tell us, what is trauma? And I was like, I know I done read this before. I know that, there is a book that will tell you everything about trauma. But at the end of the day, my response to them was, trauma is an experience that has made some shifts in a person's lives that they have identified as being traumatic to them. I think the thing when it comes to trauma, we, especially people of color and women of color, because we handle and manage things differently, something will happen to someone and we will be quick to say, oh, she should be able to get through that. Oh, that's not a big deal. Oh, you should be able to handle that. Well, your mom and them dealt with this. And I think what has happened is that a lot of us have become desensitized. And we not only desensitized, but we began to call trauma by other names, such as not being strong, not being able to handle things, falling apart, when really you've had an experience that is affecting you, but people reject the term trauma because they don't want to be attached to what comes with that.
And I have an even simpler definition of trauma. And I have a trauma therapist who specializes specifically in trauma, and we talked about it, and the definition that we kind of worked together and came up with is trauma is anything that you wouldn't want anyone else to experience. And that means something different for everyone. So the things that are traumatizing to me may not be traumatizing to Lindsay or Laqwanda or anybody else. But it's anything that you definitely would not want anyone else to go through, because you know how it's affected you. It's life-changing. Traumatic events are life-changing.
And the thing about trauma is trauma occurs throughout the lifespan. And also, trauma that happened at one time may not begin to affect you until you're older. For example, and it's Tarchelle and Lindsay, if you heard them talk about me, I share my personal business a lot. It does not bother me. I've been doing this for years, decades now. It doesn't bother me. But I grew up in a very violent household, very violent household. And so there was domestic violence there. When I became an adult woman and began to navigate through relationships, I did not realize that when someone became upset, my heart would begin to race. If I thought that I wasn't meeting someone's expectations, my hands became palmy. I would want to go hide away because I was beginning to experience those physical symptoms, which is PTSD, that were related to trauma that happened years ago. And so for me, it was, I'm just separated. As long as I'm just separated, I'll be from it, I'll be okay. But the fact was that was never dealt with. That was never dealt with. That was never identified. And because it wasn't identified when I became an adult woman, I began to experience symptoms. And so sometimes we are traumatized by things and we're not dealing with the situation when it occurs. Or we're not recognizing that it's a situation that has to be managed. Because, oh, we don't want to bring that up because it shows a negative light on the perpetrator. Well, they're different now. Why do we want to bring up old stuff from the past? Are people going to say that, hey, you're just bringing old stuff up, they done all moved from that? How come you just can't move on from it? But life isn't like that. For some of us, we have to stop and we have to pause and we have to deal with it. Because what happens, we become adults and we're like, oh, I know someone isn't supposed to hit me. I don't want that to happen. That no one will hit me. But then they're emotionally abusive to you. And you're like, well, at least I'm not getting hit. And so you try to fix the situation. And you allow yourself to be traumatized even. So recognizing and identifying the things that have been traumatic to you first is not an easy thing because it takes you back to memories, it takes you back to emotions, you can have physical reactions to it. That's why we say if you're dealing or need to process trauma, have someone in front of you, a therapist, a counselor, who can help you manage that and teach you, because these things are taught. These things aren't taught. They are not always second nature to be able to manage and process these things. I've been in mental health for years, for over a decade. And I still have to have someone sit across from me to help bounce off those things that I need to process. And so dealing with trauma isn't an easy thing. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable. It can make it seem as if it's getting worse when you're dealing with a session. But there also is another light at the end of that tunnel. And it lets you know that you don't have to process this stuff alone.
Yeah. And the thing with processing trauma too, like Laqwanda was saying, is it's almost like all of that has been suppressed is bubbling up to the top. So a lot of times we don't realize that we're dealing with it, that our bodies are carrying it, that we're lashing out at people, that we're experiencing triggers. We don't realize it until we start actually dealing with it and start looking at ourselves and looking at, what is this? Because sometimes we just don't know. We don't really understand it. And then when you start dealing with it and it bubbles up to the top, you feel it a lot more. You are you're talking about it, and that's not easy. So a lot of times when you sit on that couch across from the therapist, you're like, I don't even want to deal with this. but it helps to deal with it. It helps to pull out the journal and to actually write it down, because once it comes up, it can come out. And, let it flow. If you have to cry, if you have to scream, whatever you have to do, if you have to shake, and I've done all of those things dealing with trauma. You kind of have to deal with it. There's no way around. There's no way around not dealing with it and still being completely mentally healthy. I don't know, Lindsay, what do you say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just kind of picking off of both you and Laqwanda, I think a lot of times, so now I'm looking at it from the lens of being African American women. We know the pressures that in our community we put on girls, Black femme, Black LGBTQ community, anybody in our community. We really put a lot of pressure on us to be kind of like this perfect person. And I think a lot of times things that we consider in our community are just Black people things, like, oh, we just do that. You know how Black parents are. They scream and they throw stuff at you. They tell you, shut up, get out of my face, I don't want to hear you. And so we think like it's interesting because we see this play out on social media where people are like, oh, my mom beat me half to death, but I'm okay. And not even realizing that that is traumatic. And so the behaviors that we display as adults, some of those stem from our childhood. And we don't even address those because we don't think that's traumatic. We just think that's a way of life. And then we thus pass this down to our friends and our family and our children. And it's like it just keeps going, and it's this vicious cycle. And so I think a big part of that, I think in the Black community, is really trying to tap into, but how did that make you feel? When your mom said, shut up, get out of my face, how did that make you feel as a child? What does that feel like now when people tell you to shut up, get out of my face? And I think, like you both said, it's hard to identify it because we get so used to like, oh, this is just me, this is how I am, whatever. I've been surviving this whole time. I think it's difficult for us to really look at a thing, in the words of Iyanla Vanzant, call a thing a thing. It's hard for us to really look at it and say, no, that is trauma. And my therapist, like 2 weeks ago, she's like, so how did you feel when your mom used to tell you were lazy? I was like, I don't know, like, I feel fine. And so it kind of shook me up. I was like, oh, I mean, well, that's what mamas do, and I realized that really affected me because now I am a perfectionist. I have to always be doing something to feel like I'm worthy, like I'm not lazy. So I force myself to push, not realizing like my physical body is saying, hold on, wait a minute, take a break. So I think it's really important to like you said, write it down, journal about it, talk about it, get it out so you can start identifying it. And I think that really helps with therapists too. So like if you go to a therapist and you kind of bring your journal, you're like, hey, like I've seen this pattern. Like I've been seeing like every time, this happens, I do this. What is that? And then those therapists are amazing. Like they do amazing jobs, and you help them when you're able to tell, and it's hard. I've been going to therapy for years. I forget stuff all the time. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like I get out of the session and I'm like, hey, I meant to tell her this. So, if you want to jot it down on a sticky note, like I got to tell my therapist this, I want to talk about this. This is something that keeps coming up in my life. It's okay. So I think, like just know that. I think the first step is like, it's okay. Like it is okay if it was a traumatic experience. There's nothing like you are not a bad person. Like there's nothing wrong with you for thinking something was traumatic that maybe someone next to you feels like, why are you being so soft? Like why are you so dramatic? So yeah.
And I think it's important, especially now in the climate that we are in as African Americans. We have a source of trauma that is not related to anything that we're doing except for that we were born Black. And that is the senseless death of those who look like us. And with the platforms that I manage, I try to think of things in two folds. The first fold, I want to be there and promote everything and be aware of everything to ensure that people who look like me are safe when they're doing simple things like sitting in their houses or going for a job. And then there's the other aspect, that how much of this information do I digest before it becomes traumatic and toxic for my mental health. And people, when things happen in this country and there is a video showing specifically what happened, before you click play, ask yourself, can I mentally and emotionally handle pressing that play button? Because you cannot take that back. And that can traumatize you even further. Hearing about it is already, puts you on higher alert. Okay, this is something else we have to deal with. But ask yourself, how many articles do I have to read about it? How many, how many times do I have to see, the picture? How many times do I need to step away from social media during that time? And those are things that you may have to do. You may have to step away from social media a day or two when you notice that something traumatic has happened in the African American community. You may have to avoid looking at, the video, simply because for you, it may be triggering for you. And I am aware of that. I was aware from the very beginning that I cannot engage. What I do is find out what the call of action is. Is it to send an email to such and such? Is it to make a call to such and such? Is it to text to such and such? And I do the call to action. But I make sure that I am not allowing myself to be triggered by everything that you take in. And it's just like anything else. It's certain things. You don't let little children watch certain scary movies. Why? Because it'll give them nightmares. As an adult, think about it on that same level. Do you really need to see a video of someone being senselessly murdered?
No, we don't. I was going to ask you, and we have a couple of comments. Someone is saying true, and then Karen is saying even listening to the news can cause the trigger. And of course, Laqwanda and I have talked offline, and I'm like, look, I've had to pull away for a few days because all of this coronavirus, and I was like, just being, getting to a place where it was triggering paranoia. But I was going to ask Laqwanda, how did you get to that place of self-awareness? Do you know? And I'm asking you that because I've developed a level of self-awareness that is similar to that. I know when to pull away. And people always ask me, well, how do you know? And I'm like, I think it's just because I've been living with myself, and I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and started writing things down and started having that self-discipline. But I'm just curious on how you got to that level of self-awareness where you know your limits.
Because of my history with my mental health, I have always been guarded about what affects my emotions. on a regular basis. For instance, I'm the former director of outreach for the National Office of Mental Health. We did a Facebook Live on 13 Reasons Why. If you don't know, it's a show about a teenager who died by suicide. And they wanted to have a discussion about it. I did not participate in the panel. I did not watch the series at all. I step away from it. Why? Because I am a suicide survivor. I did not want those emotions triggered. So I had to become responsible for myself. I knew, especially when it comes to what's going on in the African American community, the first time with Trayvon Martin, and I was seeing everything on the news, seeing all the posts on social media, and then I was calling my brother. It's like, oh my gosh, he has a gun. He just moved. Is that gun registered? And I saw that heighten in me. And sometimes it has to be you really feeling that space of your emotions. When you begin to feel uneasy about something, or you find yourself, your inner thoughts saying, this is again, you need to listen to that. That is your mind, that is your body trying to protect you and asking you to pull back. You know, it's asking you to pull back. And so that level of awareness for me really came in on just understanding how different things affect me emotionally. You know, I know what watches me that will, what to watch when I'm anxious. I know what to watch when I'm furious. I know what to watch, and I pay attention to things when social media starts hitting, and this is and this is what I'm going to say, when something hits the shade room, I know right then and there, finna take a break. If I see a post for 3 of my friends and it's the exact same post, I was like, I'm finna put an instant 72 hours. Instant 72 hours. After that 72 hours, I'm in a good space. I can look and find out what the call of action is, because that is what I am looking for. The specific call of action. What is it as a community that we need to do? Because I cannot emotionally handle looking at videos and reading stories about people who have senselessly lost their lives simply because they look like me. I cannot handle that. So the people,
the call to action is to write down that tip of of finding the call to action, because that's good.
Yeah. So and
really
also good. Have in mind, like, who's your go-to person on social media that you know you can go to their page and find that one post, and it will have all the information that you will need with regards to a call to action. And that way you're not going through, everything. But you have to take a break. You have to protect yourself, because if you're not okay and you've become traumatized, then you have to step back even longer. And so the thing is, when you know that things are starting to pop off, begin to protect yourself. And it does not mean you don't care. It does not mean, if you can't share a post of someone who passed away because it reminds you of the trauma associated with it, that is okay. That is okay.
I don't think it means that you don't care. I think that it's just a form of self-care. I think it's a form of self-care to pull yourself away, to know your limits, and to set those boundaries. I talk a lot about boundaries, and to set boundaries for yourself and respect your own boundaries. The same way that if Lindsay has boundaries, and I know that when dealing with Lindsay, I can't do and say certain things because that's overstepping my boundaries. Why is it that it's okay? And this is a question, it might be a journal prompt, but why is it okay that you respect other people's boundaries, but you don't respect your own boundaries? We do it all the time. We allow ourselves to get empty, and we don't refill ourselves. We won't tell other people, no, I can't do that today. And it's not the other person overstepping our boundaries if they say, well, can you? And you agree to something, that you can't do. Or if you know that you don't have the capacity to take in another video, but we do it anyway. We have to, you have to set those boundaries for yourself and maintain those boundaries. Have enough respect, have more respect for yourself than you would even have for anybody else. Whether it's a coworker, whether it's your boss, we find ourselves having much more respect and showing much more respect to people on the outside and to outside forces, even unintentionally. We show more attention. We pay more attention to social media than we pay to our own bodies, that we pay to our own thoughts and our own ideas. So, Lindsay, you're nodding.
Yes, I was agreeing totally. I think setting boundaries is one of the highest forms of self-love. I think it's more important than showering yourself with going to the spa and getting your nails done and your hair done. Like, all of that is wonderful. But I do think boundaries is a way we show ourselves. That's like you said, the way we show ourselves, we're worthy to be respected. Like, we're setting the tone, like you're setting the foundation, and you're teaching people how to respect you. And I think when you don't set boundaries, or if you set boundaries and let's say you kind of go back on it, and it's difficult, especially when you have a hard time setting those boundaries. It's hard to kind of shift a new habit. And we know, we just know that habits form, and it's hard to kind of break that habit. And so I think just implementing small things and setting boundaries, and I know for me, I have a son, and even with him, like the other day I was sitting on the bed and I'm like doing stuff for him and like getting his stuff like worked up and ready for school, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, I'm getting anxious. I'm worried about, like, this needs to be clean. The trash needs to be taken out. And he is playing the Xbox. I was like, oh, no. Wait a minute. Get off the game and go take out the trash and clean up, and that was a good boundary, because immediately anxiety just decreased. It didn't go away, but I was like, wow, those are two things that I don't have to do. Now I can focus something else on myself and get a break. So I think it's important. And we don't realize, really, like, once you set boundaries with people, how good it feels. Like, you feel like a weight has been lifted off of your shoulders. So setting boundaries is like a must.
Yeah, and it takes the burden off of you and off of the other person. This is my experience. Because sometimes we go to a person and it's like, we don't know if it's okay to ask them for whatever it is that we want or we need, or we don't know if it's okay for them to is like, if I could go to Laqwanda, it's like, well, is she empty today? Like, did she get worn out at work? And here it is. Now I'm about to go and dump on her and ask her for this favor and that favor, and can she do this? And so I mean, it makes it easier for both parties, and that's just my opinion, but I'm not sure.
And so we're sliding into self-care when we're talking about setting boundaries and establishing new things and new routines and things that are hard for you. One thing that had helped me as far as getting things moving, as far as my self-care was concerned, I had downloaded a mood app. And if you ever, if you don't know what a mood app is, there's thousands of them on Play Store. A mood app is simply an app that tracks your mood, but it also doesn't just track your mood, because you can set a timer. So at 8 o'clock, my little mood app would come up on my phone, and it was like, "How do you feel today?" And so I would tell it how I felt, and then it would open up a huge screen, and then it would ask me, "What did you do today? Did you shower?" And then I would go there and I would just hit the little icons like of a bathtub, me eating, did a friend come visit? I can put that in there. And, it tracked, the things that I was doing. And so like after a month, and I went back and I looked on my not too great days, and I was like, I didn't do this. I didn't go outside. I didn't call one of my friends. I didn't shower that day. I was like, I wonder why I was having such a bad day. I didn't do any of the things that I normally do to make sure that I'm okay. So mood apps are a great way to, get you in the routine, because it asks you, did you do the stuff that you say that you enjoy doing? And you can add in, like if going to the movies is something that you do, you can, well, we can't do that right now, but you can add that in. Or if going for a walk, you can add that in. If meditation, you can add those things in, and it'll ask you, did you do the things that you said, this is what I need to take care of myself? And you can track it, and it will show you stacks. Yes, you did. No, you didn't. And so it's a level of accountability to help you get in that pattern of doing the things that you need to make sure that you're okay. Another thing for me that has been major in my overall wellness, because I have really, really busy thoughts, has been meditation. Meditation for me has helped me so much, that I don't know what I would have done without it. I was like, why weren't you here before? But one thing that people shy away from meditation, and I do practice both ways. And when I say practice both ways, I'm explaining. There's a conception that to meditate means you have to be completely still and you don't think about anything, and that is meditation. Well, for me, meditation wasn't that simple. I was like, okay, I'm sitting here, but my thoughts are racing. And so I had to do things like listen to guided meditations, have someone else, go to YouTube, there's plenty. Insight Timer is an app. There are tons of guided meditations. It's free, it's thousands of them. It tracks how you meditate, how much you meditate every day. You can use that for meditation. But for me, meditation really hit home when I started to be creative with it. I put on music that is soothing to me. I go grab my adult coloring books, or I go grab my puzzles, and I sit down in a space, no overhead lightings, only lamp lighting, like my incense, and I am able to zone. And I meditate and I wait until I'm completely relaxed, and then I'm able to go into that quiet space for myself. And meditation for everyone does not look the same. When I was able to go to the temple, there's a Buddhist temple down the street from my home. When I was able to go to the temple, I was able with the group to, meditate and find that still place with the group. When I'm at home, I meditate with my coloring books and those things that bring me joy and happiness. Meditation isn't always about being still. Sometimes you need to walk around and move your body and feel the music that you're experiencing. There's plenty of resources out there to help, to help you meditate. And like you have a buddy with everything else, have somebody say, hey, you meditating tonight? It's like, what video you listening to? Well, I'm listening to this, and go into the meditation space together and see what you come out with. But meditation is a beautiful way that I have helped myself with self-care. And I've taught classes, and it really helps. Sometimes it puts you to sleep, but it really helps as far as bringing the mind down. Sometimes we want the goal for the mind to stop completely, but sometimes it's just bringing the mind down.
Meditation is good. Candace put a few good resources for meditation as well. She put calm.com, the Calm app, and Headspace app. I actually have the Calm app, so I can second that. The Calm app is really good, and they have so many different meditations from so many different people. And Laqwanda just put the Insight Timer app. Do you know the Mood app that you use? If you have that one, you can put that one in there.
Yeah.
Also, I saw a hand. I think it was Nikisha. Let me unmute her and see if she had a question. Nikisha, did you have a question?
No, I was just clapping and just like the whole meditation. No questions. I agree.
Okay. I just wanted to check. Okay. And I meditate as well. I meditate, I journal. I do a lot of tracking. So the way that Laqwanda uses a mood tracker, I actually use journaling, bullet journaling. I use my planner. I practice gratitude. And gratitude is one of my favorite practices because gratitude pulls me back. And I talk about it a lot too, that sometimes sometimes you get up and you feel like you don't have anything to be grateful for because, that's what your mind will tell you sometimes, that, there's no reason for this life and all of that kind of stuff. And I start with the small things. I'm grateful that I had eyes to open this morning. I'm grateful that my eyes work. I'm grateful that I have a voice. I'm grateful that I have lights. I'm grateful that I have running water and it's clean. There are people in this country that don't have clean running water, and I'm grateful that I have it. So just that will pull me out of the funk. The things that I do to center myself beyond just meditation is I ask a lot of questions. My husband and I just had a conversation about questioning God. And, I don't know about y'all, but as a Black woman growing up in a Black church, a lot of times I was taught, you don't question God. And I finally got to a place, and when the light bulb went off, it changed my entire spiritual life. But if you're not asking God the question, how are you expecting to get an answer? And if we're praying, and this is for me, if y'all don't want to question God, then y'all don't question God. I'm not telling anybody else about their relationship. But for me, if I'm the one that's doing all the talking when I'm praying, then how do I get any answers? And so it just didn't make sense to me. And so I started asking questions. And I will, at any given moment, I'll start asking, I pray and I meditate. And it's like when I pray, I'm asking the questions. And when I meditate, I seem to get those answers back, even when it doesn't come right then. But I've learned so much more about myself, so much more about my family, so much more about compassion and being compassionate and using, using the gifts that I have to, I don't want to say manipulate because it's not really manipulation, but to get the results that I want from other people, to better the communication. And so, just to piggyback on that meditation thing, I ask a lot of questions. And then when I get answers, I question the answers that I get. So, that's where I am with self-care.
Yeah, so for me, I also, like all the other ladies, I meditate as well. The what I do for meditation is very similar to like Laqwanda, like how she said. It takes me a long time. I have anxiety, so I'm always in my head. So it takes me a while to kind of just like really be still, really listen. So typically I will play music. I burn a lot of candles. I have a lot of incense. So really those like trying to tap into those five senses for me is really important. So I do a lot of like grounding techniques before I start meditation. So I do the feel, like what does the floor feel like? What does this, rug feel like? What am I looking at? How does this frankincense smell? And then like what is it? So I do a lot of that before, and then I will start meditating. Usually I have like the music up loud to kind of like drown out like thoughts. But like I'll do that. And then I'll do yoga as well. Like I will sometimes shift from like meditation straight into yoga or yoga right into meditation. I am not like the bomb yoga person. Believe me, I'm not. I have a lot of physical issues as well. So I'm like, I just do the best I can, but it feels good for my body. And so that's a big like key thing for me too. Self-care is like really listening to my body. If my body is like, this hurts, then I'm like, okay, let's not extend it over. Like this feels comfortable, this feels good, let's stretch those muscles out that way. And then I also do a routine. So I don't have an app. I love to journal. I love bullet journals. I love notebooks, anything where I can write. So what I've done is I've actually written down things that I enjoy to do. So like I like to draw, I like to paint, I love to drink tea in the mornings. And so every day I go and I look at this list. When I first wake up, one thing I really do is like drink tea. So that's like always every day. But I look at this list and like, what do I want to do? Oh, great. I want to meditate for 10 minutes. Okay, I'll do that. Then once I'm done, I'm like, I might want to go sit on the porch and relax. So that gives me some sense of control because, like I said, I have anxiety, and a lot of people with anxiety struggle with like being in control. So when I give myself options, it's kind of like I'm tricking my mind into saying, "Oh, see, you got this under control. Like you're controlling this situation." So yeah, I'll pick like different things, and I try to stay on a routine every day. And I think the consistency of the routine is really what helps me. When I wake up, my anxiety is like through the roof, and it typically takes me about 5 hours for me to like really be calm. So if I miss out on that routine, like in the morning, my whole day is like thrown off, and I kind of can't get back on track. So between the meditation, the yoga, and really, like I said, the key thing for me is like really driving that like routine is definitely key. And another thing as well is music. I love music. Like music is like the best thing ever. So I definitely listen to a lot of music, but I'm really careful. Like I'm not like putting on like trap music and like, oh, I'm trying to calm down. Like, no. I'm like, okay, let's like Anita Baker, so play something with Kenny G. So I try to like really like make sure like it's calm, because I think we don't talk a lot about intention, like, and I'm really big on like setting the intention. So if my intention is to like calm my anxiety, me listening to like Lil Wayne or the Baby or somebody like that is really not gonna like make that happen. So yeah, those are just some things that I do that really, really work well for me. And I'm not like, I have days where I wake up, I'm like, I don't want to do none of that. Like I just want to lay in the bed. But I'm really gentle with myself. And that's a part of my self-care too that I had to start incorporating, is to not be so hard. Like, oh, you suck, you didn't take a bath today. Like you so like, no. Like I'm like, girl, lay in the bed. You want to watch Golden Girls? Lay in the bed and watch Golden Girls all day. Chill out and relax. And so I think that's a big part of it too, is like being gentle with yourself, understanding that like it's a process. Like we're all human. Like it's okay. We're all trying to figure out our bodies, and we're trying to retrain our thoughts. So just, I think, and we don't do that a lot. Like we don't really have a lot of like sensitivity towards ourselves. Like you were saying, we give it to other people. Like, we're always so sensitive to everybody else, but then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, oh no, I can't forgive myself for that. So, you know, really forgiving yourself, really being gentle with yourself, listening to yourself, and just like trying to be aware as you can. And I think that does make like a huge difference in your self-care routine. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And I like that you said, and another thing I talk about all the time that a lot of people don't talk about, those days where you don't feel like taking a shower. And you have to allow yourself that day. You have to allow yourself to just be, because sometimes that's all you can do. It takes everything in you to just be for that day. And it's okay. You know, there was somebody I was listening to the other day that talked about the should, and how we have all of these things that we should do. And she was saying that she wishes that that word will be taken out of the dictionary, because there's no real rule book to life, especially for Black women. Like, we deal with so much that sometimes that should just goes out the window. And judge me. That's fine. Judge me. I'm okay. But I think it's three of us up here at least. Nobody else on here ever has that day. It's just the three of us, and that's okay. But I think it's three of us at least that have those days where we don't want to do the basics, the very basics, and it's okay. The key is to not allow ourselves to linger in that.
Yeah, just to add on to what you were saying, I think that was so good that you said that, because a lot of times we see all these like great blogs and these sites that post about like this great self-care plan, and nowhere on it is it being aware, setting intention, or forgiving yourself, or it's always like, go buy this, go to the spot and do. And it's like, okay, but if I am underprivileged, if I am low income, if I don't have a job, like, how can I go purchase $100 spa day? So what can I do
at this home? One, how about none of those are the case if I am depressed, right, if my anxiety is through the roof, mm-hmm, if I'm afraid, right, if I have schizophrenia and I just can't handle it.
Right. And I think we don't
what about those cases?
Right. And we don't see that in blogs or in videos or on these amazing programs. CNN does a special and nobody's talking about the simplest, and you and Laqwanda literally just said small little simple things. And then we also said, but be easy if you don't do it. Like, it's okay. And so I think like that has to be a part of the conversation going forward in all communities. And especially, in our community, is that it's okay to not always be doing something. Like, it's okay. So yeah.
Yeah. It's okay to not be okay. And it's okay to tell somebody. And I think again, Black women, we have a tendency to think that if we talk to somebody, if I call Lindsay, then Lindsay might call Laqwanda, and they're going to be talking about me. And I'm afraid to be vulnerable with the people who are going through the exact same thing and really have no place to judge. We don't want to talk about it. When, it's like, do you realize how many years I was tormented because I felt like something is really wrong with me because I don't feel like brushing my teeth today. I didn't know that there were other women who went through that. I didn't know that there were other women who, were extremely on a high one day, and then the next day, nothing happened, but all of a sudden they can't get out of the bed. I thought it was just me and something's wrong with me. But as we open up the conversations, and we start talking about it, then we realize that we're not alone. None of us are alone. Our experiences might not be the exact same, but we have so many similarities. And if I don't go through the exact same thing you do, then chances are I know someone else who has either been through it, who goes through it, or somebody that I might introduce you to later when you're at a different stage of healing, who you might be able to help, because we're all connected. We all deal with something, every one of us.
You know, a couple of things. You know, I am a contributor with Psych Central, and I was writing specifically about self-care. And my most popular article out of all the ones I've written was 3 reasons why saying F it is great self-care. Because people needed to hear that it is 100% okay to do this. And wow, you know, it's 100% okay to let go and walk off. Because if you think about 3 concepts: pausing, stopping, and walking away. You need to know when to pause. That means, you know what? I'm still going to focus on this, but I need to sit this down for a second. I'll come back to it. You need to know when to stop. You know what? I still have to do this, but today it is not happening. And you must know when to walk away. You must know when I cannot do that, and it is absolutely okay. And go. Give it to someone else to do. Tell them that you can't do it. Just take it off your shoulders. You know, put that boundary in place like we talked about before. But those 3 things are crucial when it comes to your self-care. Knowing when to pause, knowing when to stop, and knowing when to just walk away. And know that you are no less than because of it. You just put yourself on another level because you were able, that self-awareness kicked in and said, you know what? My value, my mental health, my emotional space is more valuable than what this tunnel, this situation is trying to take me into. I'm out. Perfectly fine to do. You don't have to have anybody agree with you. You can be the Lone Ranger, but you'll be the Lone Ranger and happy. You'll be the Lone Ranger and healthy. You can be the Lone Ranger and regroup. But when you fall, how many people come see about you when you fall? How many come and see about you when you fall?
Not many at all.
And so that's why when we could fly, what did they say? Put your mask on first. Then help the next person.
Yes, when we could fly.
Your mask on first. Then you can help the next person.
Yes.
You have to see about yourself.
Yes.
You know, as women, we're taught to see about everybody else, to make sure everybody else is good, to make sure I will sit in this house and be like, you telling my daughter, did you eat today? What did you eat? Then at 9 o'clock at night, I'm sitting in bed. Why do I feel this way? I haven't eaten.
I'm the same way.
But I done made sure she done ate and I ain't eat. And then now I'm messed up. And when she need me, I don't have any energy. So you have to take care of yourself first, people. You have to know when to pause, you have to know when to stop, and you have to know when to walk away.
Yes.
Now, I know we said that we were going to talk about leaving toxic relationships.
I was just about to say, and it's funny because it's like the perfect transition.
Yeah.
That includes leaving, well, I've shut down businesses like that without warning. I don't care. I've left people, I've left family members, whatever. If you are not contributing to this stage of my life, or if you are taken away, bye-bye. I'm sorry. My mental health is greater than any relationship, any amount of money, any clout. What is clout anyway? Like this is this whole new thing with this clout. But it's like, I don't care. All I want is peace of mind. And if you have ever experienced a bit of peace of mind, you'll cut off any and everybody, and you will remove everything in your life, period, to get it. Forget the shoulds, forget everything and everybody. And if they get offended, oh well, they're offended over there. I can't worry about how you feel. Sounds cold, but it's necessary.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say I agree with you, Tarchelle. Like, I was thinking about one of my really good friends. We've been friends for years, and I had to walk away from him. And I was like, I can't. Like, I just can't put this amount of energy into our friendship when I feel like I'm not getting it in return. Like, I'm like, I can't do it. And I think, like, it's so important. Like, it's okay to walk away. And I struggle a lot. I want people to like me. Like, that is one of my biggest issues in life. Is like, but I want you to like me. I want everybody to like you gotta like. And I'm like, no. So now I'm on this path of like, no, they don't have to like you. It's okay. No, they can be mad. It's okay. And because it is so key to like maintaining my mental health, I always tell people, and I hope this isn't triggering for anyone, but it's life or death. Like, it's like literally, like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, it's life or death. Like, I can't play like, oh, I can just walk this fine little line and let you like treat me like crap, because I know my cycle. I know exactly where that is going to lead to. I know exactly where I am going to be in that situation if I continue to allow that to go on. And so it's very important for me to walk away from toxic situations. And I'm back in school now. And even at school, I'm a biology major. The STEM environment is so toxic, so male driven, so divisive, so filled with racism and prejudice and all of that. But I have found myself walking away. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I will walk away from, like, I'm not gonna do this. And so I think it's really important. And we have to tell people that it's okay, because you need to live, but not just, I think a lot of people have this idea of like, I'm just surviving. Don't you want to thrive? Like, don't you, you want to enjoy life and like have a great time and like have fun. So I think it's not just I want to survive, it's I want to thrive. I want to be like the best me I can be. And for me to do that is to leave this toxic situation, whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm not down for like this toxic stuff. Like, I'm the queen of promoting people. I'm like, girl, go, bye. Leave that marriage, leave that school, leave that job. Like, just go. So yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. Leave it all behind. I don't care. I'll leave a city I've picked up and moved, and it's okay. And every time I've left a situation for my peace of mind, and I've left for some other reasons too, and not been as thriving, but I've always thrived. I've always been better in one way or another. If I leave for peace of mind, it's better. And one thing, and again, hopefully this is not triggering. Y'all let me know in the comments if the conversation is triggering. But to be 100% totally honest, every time that I can think of that I've had major suicidal ideations, thoughts, attempts, because I've had all of that. The trigger was a person. The trigger was an event. And so when you say it's a life or death situation, sometimes you have to remove, and I'll be 100% honest. I'm very honest about it all. I don't talk to my own mother. My mom calls my husband or texts my husband to get a message to me. I haven't talked to my mom in 2 years. Mother's Day 2 years ago. Mother's Day is really hard for me, but I know that it's necessary that I don't talk to her, because I know that the relationship, the things that she says, because she's not ready to deal with things the way that I've dealt with them. She's not ready for different things. And so I have to make sure that I'm in a place that I'm okay for these conversations to happen and all of that, because everybody's not ready for therapy. Just because you're ready to make a change in your life and you're ready to deal with your trauma does not mean that the other people who are involved in that trauma are ready to deal with it. Doesn't mean that they're ready to apologize or admit their part. And you know, in the same time, you're not always ready to admit your part in somebody else's trauma, if we be honest and if we tell the truth. And so, and you know, that's okay. But we all have to take that step and be responsible for ourselves. So if that means letting someone go, that's okay. If that means letting the job go, that's okay. If that means letting a man go, that's okay. If that means letting your best friend go, I've had to do that before too. That's okay. Sometimes it takes that pruning, that cutting away, for you to be able to fly, for you to be able to grow, for you to be able to develop. So yeah, it's okay.
I think one of the bigger things and challenges that we have, particularly as women, and in the environments that we've grown up, and we're thinking about things generationally, we're taught in a sense that your family can't be toxic to you. But that's not true. Your family can be emotionally abusive to you, can be physically abusive to you, can be sexually abusive to you. They can cause all sorts of financial trauma to you. And that's what makes it so much difficult. You know, I have had to, you know, pull myself away from certain members of my family, and I am okay with that. As someone who lives with mental health conditions, anyone that has viewed mental health in my life as something I brought on myself, something that I can just easily get over, they're gone. Because I can't, you know, I can't. Either you are, in my world, either you are on my team or you are not. And that is it. There is no in between. Either you are on my team to support me or you are not on my team. And, you know, letting go of friendships and relationships, and putting space in between yourself and other people, whether it's family, it does not have to be this drawn out, over the top, blow up situation. I have had some very calms. We will never speak to each other again. And you can simply say, I don't feel that we are in a space where it's healthy for either one of us to communicate. And as of right now, I have to pull away. You don't have to say anything else. But for your sake, I need to pull away, because the communication that we have, you know, it isn't healthy for us. And so you begin to move and navigate, that. I know Tarchelle has a question.
You went on mute.
Oh no, I said I know Tarchelle has a question that she was going to respond to.
Oh no. I thought you were, look, I was going to tell you And we actually, all of us can respond, because I think we may or may not have different answers. But Karen's question is, how do you tell someone? How do you tell someone that they are toxic? My sister is that for me. Do you want to go
have
first?
to tell the person that they're toxic, okay?
Right.
Because that's going to
Exactly.
cause more confusion. That's going to cause more animosity. That's going to, when you say you're toxic, you just took some gasoline and poured it on the fire that's already there.
Yeah.
You don't have to say that. You don't have to call anyone names or attach a label to anyone. The question you need to ask yourself, what do I want from this situation? What is going to be the better approach for the situation? And what I'm asking you is, do you feel that you need space from this person right now? And if that is what you're trying to convey, then that is what you need to communicate. I need space from this situation, from our communications right now, because it doesn't put me in a good space. And when I talk to people and I'm having conversations with them, I avoid overusing the word you. Because when you say you all the time, people begin to feel attacked. So say I feel that, this communication isn't the healthiest space for me right now. So I need to make sure that I'm okay and I need to pull back for a little while. But I would not go around calling people toxic. I don't want to see you on the Shade Room or World Star Hip Hop, So no. So think about it from a different approach. Think about it from a goal-oriented approach. What do you want your goal to be? Remember, we can have thoughts of, oh, well, I want this person to change. Well, you cannot make that person change. And so your goal will need to be something that is beneficial to you, but still isn't adding more fire to a toxic situation. So pull yourself back, ask yourself the question, what it is that I want from this situation, and begin to navigate it from there. But if you need space, then say in a polite way that, right now I just need some space. You don't, and this is the thing, because people will throw a fishing hook out there and try to lure you into a toxic conversation. You don't have to take the bait. Only thing you have to say is what you need to say. I need space. I'm pulling back, and that's it. You don't have to say anything else, and then start the process of working on yourself. Yep. And navigating what life looks like for you without that person there, because that is where we get tripped up, especially when we're talking about leaving toxic relationships and getting away from toxic situations. I had a very best friend, actually two of them, and they both gone. But we were like close with me through thick and thin. And then something took place, a decision had to be made. And so the decision was they were no longer in my life. One, you need to mourn that person is no longer there if you had a close connection with them. You have to experience that. Don't pretend like that doesn't exist. You can miss somebody, but that don't mean they got to be sitting next to you. And also think about, well, if this person was a support person for me, who do I reach out for support now? Call somebody and say, hey, I just lost and I did this exact thing. I just lost my biggest support person. These are the things that I experienced. Would you mind being that support person for me? Because I really need to have someone when I go through things. And they told me yes. And they've been rolling with me ever since. And so you have to mourn that situation and then establish a plan for yourself of How do I deal with life with that person no longer being here? Because if you don't, guess what you're going to be doing? Or texting them, hey, I miss you. And that's what you want to avoid. So you want to empower yourself. It does take some work when you remove yourself from toxic situations, because a void is sometimes placed there, and you need to have a plan for that to make sure that you are okay. And we don't want you slipping back into situations that aren't healthy for you.
And just to piggyback on what Laqwanda was saying, kind of my answer to it goes back to the boundaries and establishing your boundaries with yourself first, and then being able to communicate those boundaries and saying, this is not allowed, this behavior is not allowed. It's not okay when you call me out of my name. It's not okay when you raise your voice at me, because whatever. And you don't even have to give a reason. If it's not okay, it's just not okay. And then you tell them, when you do that, I'm gonna hang up. If you do it too many times, then I'm not gonna be answering your calls. You have to let them know what the behavior is that bothers you, and then what the consequence is. So it's just a matter of having a mature conversation, which a lot of us in the Black community have not been taught to do. We do this, we yell and we scream, and I've noticed, even going to someone, having that mature conversation, if they're not used to that, then they want to cuss, clown, fight. I'm gonna be petty and I'm gonna be this, and it's like, really, like, whoa. It does not take all of that. I'm just having a conversation. I'm telling you, this is allowed, this isn't allowed, and this is what will get you blocked. I have a whole long list of people, family, friends, all of that stuff. That, do y'all need me to do a tutorial on how to block people from texting you and calling? Because that you can do. You can block them from your social media. You can block them from texting, calling, all of that stuff. You just have to be sure, that you're communicating. Don't just block people. Don't just cut people out and never talk to them again without letting them know why, without giving them the respect of having the option of stopping the behavior or not, And sometimes it's just a habit that they have, you might not like when they call you boo-boo, but they just have that habit because they've been calling you boo-boo since you were born. But now that's not okay for you. It's like sometimes you just have to continue to remind them. So just be mindful and then think about how you would want someone to communicate that to you. If you were doing something that's toxic, don't act like we're not all toxic. We all have some toxic behavior, some toxic traits, every one of us. And if you're doing something that's toxic to someone else, how would you want them to communicate that to you? Communicate it just the exact same way.
Yeah, I was just gonna add pretty much everything Tarchelle and Laqwanda said. I know for me, I think one of the first steps I did to like having difficult conversations was to find out why I was afraid to have those conversations. And so I really had to like do, and I suggest doing this with your therapist, not like in the house by yourself, but doing it with someone who can help you. Therapists do a great job. Counselors, therapists do a wonderful job of giving you tools to help you learn how to have these difficult conversations and really kind of get to the root of why it is so challenging for you. And so for me, what I start doing now when the conversation is difficult to get rid of someone who is toxic out of my life, I really try to write down, what is my intention of the conversation? Because I have to be really in tune with myself to say, well, is my intent to go there and tell them how they pissed me off and I'm not going to take this because I want you, like, what is my intention? Like, is my intention truly to walk away, or is my intention to be like, I'ma just scream and holler because I want to fight? So really getting to the root of like, what is the intention? What do I want from this conversation? What is this going to look like if this person is not in my life? And asking yourself those tough questions, because then when you see it on paper, it's kind of like the saying, write the vision, make it plain. So when you write it and you see it, it's like, okay, now I see it, it's tangible, it's something I can hold. And I think that gives you some sense of ease and comfort. It's very hard. And so I think it's like I said, it's very challenging for us to do that. It's as in the Western culture in general, we are poor communicators. We don't know how to communicate well. Like Tarchelle was saying, like we go to fighting, we have all of these like defense mechanisms, right? So we like run to all of these things to like avoid. Like we want to numb it, we don't want to like head on, we don't want to feel anything. We just kind of want it to go away. And so it's like it's going to be tough. Like, I don't want anyone to think like having a hard conversation is going to be like a walk in the park, because, right, we can't predict how the other person is going to respond. But what we can do is how we respond. And so I think like in the specific question is you control you. You only have the power to control you. And it is a sibling, and I know that's hard. I've had to walk away from my sibling because I was in a really toxic situation, and I was being financially drained, physically drained, like I was all over the roof. And not to like invoke fear in people, but I had a stroke at 33 years old. And that was just 2 years ago. So it's very serious that you take that has to be a priority. It can't be, oh, well, this is just my sister, so it's okay. No, it's not okay. And from my experience, my sister never even visited me in the hospital. So you got to put it in perspective. Like Laqwanda was saying, where are these people going to be when something goes wrong? So you really have to look at it in perspective. And so, I just challenge you to, just really, like Tarchelle said, just sit back and kind of think about, like, what do I want this to look like? Like how is this going to go? How is this conversation going to go? And then, go forward. And if you feel this is just too much, I really can't do this, maybe seek therapy and try to find some tips and tools, or maybe, there are some awesome books that talk about like conflict. Brene Brown, I love her to death. She talks a lot about having those tough conversations and how to like navigate through them. So doing those things will help. It won't be necessarily easy, but it will help you kind of be able to just move through it. So that's kind of my advice, just to add on.
And just to put this in, simply because we have to, disclosure, we are not talking about situations that include abuse. Out.
Right.
Done. Right. Anything that puts your emotional, physical self in danger, we're not talking about sitting down having a conversation with somebody. No, we want you safe at all times. We want you and your family to be well, and we want you to survive. And that is not the time or place for you to have a conversation with someone when your life is in danger. So please, utilize the resources in your area to keep yourself safe in those situations. So I just wanted to mention that. Ladies, we are coming. Oh yes, we are coming to the top, too close to the next hour. So are there any questions from the audience regarding anything for one of the panelists, or something that you would like to ask? Any of the panelists, would you guys like to make any statements before we close out?
Well, I was just going to say, you can I think it will let you unmute yourself if you do have a question. I appreciate you, ladies. This has been a really good conversation, and based on the comments, I think that it was much needed in this community and in this setting. You know, we need more safe spaces, more spaces where we can let our hair down and just be free to be us.
Yeah, thank you, so much to everyone who came out and the amazing questions and feedback, and just the conversation was really, really good. And I just want to challenge everybody to continue to have these type of conversations, and continue to, just move forward. And, we all, me, Laqwanda, and Tarchelle really want to see everybody on here succeed and do well and really thrive. And so I think just continue these conversations. Don't just stop here. Not tonight. Keep going and keep pushing. Yeah.
So to close things out, just so you guys know, a little housekeeping, the same login that you use tonight, you can use for every session for the conference. We have 2 sessions tomorrow, one at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, How It All Fits, Why Wellness Matters Now More Than Ever. Tomorrow night, we have an 8 p.m. session, self-discovery within yourself. Sunday, we have at 4 p.m., we have Welcome Home, Learning the Secrets and Joys of Home Ownership. And then we will close out Sunday at 8 p.m., Self-Wellness Through the Arts, How to Care for Yourself with Your Passion. So if you, I sent everyone who registered an email from Healing Black Women. It has a detail of each session with the panelists as well as the times of the sessions. If you forget, you can always go to healingblackwomen.com, and it has information about the panelists there. Be sure, if you haven't followed us on Instagram, at Healing Black Women, and Facebook at Healing Black Women, and there is also a Healing Black Women Facebook group. So there's multiple ways that you guys can connect with us. We appreciate you guys so much for joining us for our opening session tonight. I am elated. I know the women who my contributors, I thank them so much. They have worked so hard in helping, bring this together. But it's all about having a space where we can be, and having a space where we can speak our truth and get the support that we all deserve. And at the end of the day, that is what this all is all about.
Hey, Laqwanda, I'm sorry. I have a question that's asking about getting the audio going, and to answer that question, and I'm not sure if it's that she can't hear us or what's going on, but to answer that question, you have to give your microphone and your camera permission if you're doing it on your phone. And I think if you're doing it on the computer as well, you have to give your microphone and your camera permission. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, but if you have any questions about anything, you can always find us on, just look up for Healing Black Women and shoot us DMs. We're pretty active in responding, and just let us know, and we'll help you all the best that we can. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We truly appreciate it. And you guys have a great evening. Bye.
Don't forget to share. If you got something out of this, share the event as well.
Yes, share the event. If you had a great time tonight, share the event. People can still register.
All right. Thank y'all. It's so good to see these beautiful brown faces. Good night, y'all.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.
I'm trying to figure out how to end this thing, so don't mind me.